IVM.
Shunya One, a show on technology by Sheila Aditya, a man who was actually called technology and then renamed at the age of 14. Of course, his number skills or numerical skills are challenged because there's Shunya, there's 1, there's also 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, didn't get to that. But Shunya One, Sheila Aditya. New episodes out on the IVM podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Alright, please note that the language and ideas presented on the show might not be suitable for everyone. If you're under 18, make sure your mom isn't around. If you're over 80, why is your mom around?
You're listening to Cyrus Says.
Let's meet Priya Malik, a writer, a columnist, an actress, and importantly, you can talk to her on social media at Priya sometimes. You can't talk to her all the time, but I will talk to her all the time on a show called Cyrus Says.
Why follow your auntie's advice when you can follow Cyrus Says on Facebook and Twitter to stay updated about the latest shows?
All right, one thing I've had a real problem with is people asking me for directions. I've reached a point where I just can't take it anymore, so do not ask for directions. A, it makes you feel like a loser. Like you have no other work, you're walking around, people say, excuse me, how to go to Altamont Road? I can't take it anymore, so I'm saying that let's stop this for a year. Nobody asks for directions. You've got Google Maps, you've got all kinds of things on your phone. Find it yourself. Stop asking me. It's called Cyrus Says.
And that's what Cyrus says.
Okay, we're with Priya Malik here in the studio. Lovely lady who's a writer, a columnist, an actress. Well, it says really TV star, but I believe it's reality.
Oh, it was totally meant to be.
But it's Punjabi for reality.
I was
reality
typing
TV star.
it at 3 a.m. so I can,
what the hell were you doing at 3 a.m.? 3 a.m. is my fourth P. Yes, I'm not lying.
What a bladder problem.
No, not bladder problem. I just have something to do in the night. There's nothing else to do. So I try to pee like EMIs. You know, every couple of hours I go, I have my pee, think about life.
So I know what to do like 20 years from now when I'm probably your age.
Give or take. Give or take.
Give or take.
Okay,
I'm being polite.
Priya, we have to start at the beginning of this fantastic journey of yours.
Yes.
Which is, why the hell did you come back to India?
Okay.
From the land of Oz. Who, by the way, won the Ashes yesterday at the time of recording. Go on.
Right.
You're not interested?
So, no. I actually haven't been following cricket for a while. I've done a cricket show.
You've done a cricket show?
Yes.
Where?
So here in India, when the World Cup T20 was on. And
I've
even done... So I also get online with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation every 3 weeks.
ABC. I used to think it was alphabets. They're really a company. Yeah.
And we sometimes talk about cricket, but apparently I haven't been following this series. So, Aussieland, I think it was too perfect for me. I think I got to a point where everything was too perfect, too nice, too comfortable. And I feel that the most uncomfortable place to be is a comfort zone. And that's where...
So you're not like an Indian male who wants to stay with his mother till he's 60?
Yes.
Which is the best
I want the
comfort zone of
constant
all.
nagging. I wanted the chaos because I think that's where I find my peace.
But I want the beta khana khaya. I like that. I feel good. And especially when you're 52 and they're saying beta.
Oh, of course. Yeah, shadi kar le. Yeah,
shadi kar le again. Again, beta. Let's get back to your story.
Bachche to kar le.
Let's get back to your story, which is Australia.
Yes. Yeah. So it got too perfect for me. I think I got...
As in easy?
Too easy. Had a great paying job. I was a band 5 high school teacher.
Well, slow. You got to explain all this to us.
Yes.
First and foremost, did you grow up in Australia?
No. So I grew up in Dehradun.
And this is typical. Your accent
I went
is
to Australia to validate my accent.
Okay. No gag,
because
not mine.
I was like,
Damn
you
it.
know what, Mum, Dad, just send me there. Like, send me to Pakistan, Bangladesh, Dubai. People come back from Dubai with an accent. So I was like, dude, I'm in Australia. It's been almost a decade. At least I can go back and say, like, it's been a decade.
But I like the Uttarakhand accent. I like the Dehradun accent.
I'm typically from Dehradun, Nashville Road.
Yeah.
And
I played the squash nationals there. Were you around?
Were you there?
1984.
Oh, no, I wasn't even born,
Jeez.
Cyrus.
Embarrassing. Anyway, I didn't do well anyway.
I was like
Thank God you won. Because I lost in the second round.
Oh, right.
Minus 3 years old. Was your sister around?
She was, actually.
There you go, see? We have 6 degrees of separation. We're friends now. Yeah, so Dehradun. And then what age about your teens, college? When you go to Australia?
Yes. So in my early, I was 21 when I left for Australia. Almost 21, actually.
What were you going to do? What was the plan?
I went there to study. So I went there to do my master's degree. In English. So it was, okay. So I'll run you through my degree.
Australians don't even speak English.
I'll run you through they speak Australian. So I did my bachelor's in English honours from Delhi University, and then I decided to go to Australia for my master's. I enrolled in a master's in applied linguistics. linguistics, which I did not complete because it got too boring. So I did a
I should think so. Did you hear how it sounded?
Yeah,
applied
masters in
linguistics.
applied linguistics.
Imagine if I reverb it. Applied linguistics, applied
So
linguistics,
there's like
applied
lots of
linguistics.
Chomsky and all of that happening.
Chomsky should be a bull terrier.
Chomsky should be food. It sounds like food.
or after food, after you finished eating. Yeah, sorry.
Ew.
Ooh.
Which is why I did a postgrad in applied linguistics. I got too boring. Then I was like, what do I do? What do I do? A friend said, you're really good at like telling people what to do. I was like, oh, hey, you're right.
So the
I was
army.
like, masters in teaching. So I was like, I'll do a masters in teaching middle and secondary. That got over. Then I was like, oh, shit. And now I still don't know what to do in life.
So you did
and
two
people
masters?
were like, yes, do a masters in education, which is MEd by research, which is halfway through a PhD. And I was halfway through it. I almost completed it. And I was like, it's getting too boring again. So that getting bored was constantly happening because I felt like I was in my late 20s but did not know what to do with my life.
Can I
now
digress?
I do.
Can I digress for a second and we get back to
Yes.
that? If you have two masters,
Yes.
I don't know how does it work. Do you actually call people master when they have a master's?
Or mistress.
Or mistress?
Okay, that sounds so
Mistress
wrong.
sounds wrong, yeah. but should you be called master?
No.
Or master because you have two?
Ooh, I should be.
I'm
Or I
just
should be called hello, double master. Every time
That's another profession.
every time I meet people from the army or engineers or doctors, and you know how they introduce themselves as, hi, I'm doctor, blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
Or hi, I'm
Engineer,
engineer.
yeah.
Or hi, I'm honorable, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. I think, maybe that's what I should do. Hi, I'm teacher Priya Malik. It will sound so weird.
Or if you're a model in Lokanwala, you say, hi, I'm in McDonald's.
Or cafe coffee
Cafe
day.
coffee
Come on,
day.
you're getting
Things
it
are
wrong.
doing-
It's always
things are-
CCD.
CCD. Till there's a new brand out there, I was just told. Some Italian sounding thing, they were pointing it out to me as a new one. It's going to destroy. What's it? Di Bella. Priya.
Oh,
Okay, Priya,
fancy.
sorry. Let's get back to you. The important part here, and of course, is the segue that happens in your
Yes.
life. So you're actually well studied. You're in Australia. You should be coping well with, things are looking good. Why did you feel this disenchantment and this is not the right place? I'm not,
I think the disenchantment was already always there since I was growing up. So I think I was actually, and this will sound so cliche, but I was actually trying to find myself. I was trying to find what do I really want to do. And I've been a performer when I was in school. I used to always be on stage. It was debates, elocutions. Why do you think I sound like this? It was all received pronunciation, Queen's English, getting caught speaking Hindi and paying a fine.
But if
at
a
my
Haryanvi
school.
cop catches you for speeding, do you speak like this?
Of course, they always let me go.
Because they don't know what you're saying. Yeah.
Because they're like, हाँ मैडम चाहिए, yeah, sure.
sh-
I'm like, thank you भैया. और उसके बाद आके proper Hindi, Punjabi. and
Then
I
some
was like,
galis from
oh,
25 yards
of
away.
course.
I'm so busy. All right. Sorry. Again. So you're in Australia and then you have this moment of like, what the hell am I doing? I
Then
don't
Big
want
Brother
this.
Australia happens to me.
But how?
Okay, so
have you done? You're
there
a
used
student.
there used to be a running joke in my Indian group of friends. You know how when you're living abroad, you usually end up having two groups.
Why does that
of
happen?
friends. It is
Why do
so
you always have
weird.
desis? I've lived
This is-
abroad and the Indians and the Pakistanis don't leave you alone, man.
It's so weird, dude. It's so weird. So you have got your Desi group and then you've got your Videshi groups,
Yeah.
right? So in my Desi group, there used to be a running joke because
This is a
of the
true story,
personality.
yeah? What
It
she's
is a
saying,
true
it's a
story. But
sociological
every
phenomenon.
every NRI's life has
Yeah.
this.
Someone should
phenomenon.
write about this ridiculous thing. Go on.
I should. Anyway, so my Desi group always had this joke that Priya should totally be in Big Boss. She's such an extreme personality. She's so opinionated. People are not going to like her, which is my usual thing. Like, people hate
These
me
are
when
your
they first
friends.
meet me.
These
These
are
are
your
my
friends,
friends,
yeah.
dude. So
Yeah.
can you imagine what the enemies have got to say? I'm sure they're listening to this podcast. Anyway.
No one listens to this podcast. We're like
This is just
Switzerland. Nobody
between
knows where we are.
Or Australia, for that matter.
Australia's
I mean,
always-
people know who they are, but people don't know where they stand.
That's because at 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday, they're playing volleyball on the beach. Come on, what's wrong with your civilization?
But politically and economically, I feel Australia is so backward, and I know I'm saying it on a podcast. But
I
it
love
is.
Australia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, there's nothing to do. You wake up
Can't
and
we
you
switch?
go smell a barbecue. Anyway.
Oh, you don't have to sell it to me. Come on, stop.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so there used to be a running joke, and then I was in the middle of my, I was teaching English to class 11 and 12 in a high school, and I got an email saying, we have received you have been nominated by a mate. Nominate a mate was Big Brother 2014's theme. And I was like, oh, okay. So I thought it's a joke. I clicked on it and they said, oh, we have received your application. We love it, blah, 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 blah. And we would love for you to send us a video.
This was like a joke.
I thought it was a joke, right? So I didn't do anything about it. I told my students, and one of the girls were like, Miss, you should totally do it. They're going to hate you. I was like, oh, thanks.
Not too many pictures on these Big Brother reality shows, huh?
None at all. I was actually the first one. Anyway, so I did not do anything about it. Then a week after, I got another email from them saying, hey, we have noticed that you haven't done anything about it. Can you please? But it was another one of those automated emails that you get, which are system generated. So I didn't do anything about it again. Then I got another email from the producer, which was clearly written by a human being.
A personal sort of email.
A personalized email saying, hey, Priya, we have noticed that you haven't done anything about it. Could you please? I went back home and I spoke with my husband. I said, have you done it?
1 minute, stop. You're married.
Yes, I'm sorry.
You should have mentioned that a bit earlier. About all these young men listening to the
Priya Malik
program.
is a comedian, Ula, a wife. People are like, holy shit, this is where we stop listening.
You're holding out on us. You're holding out on us.
And I was like,
Is the hubby Indian?
He's an NRI.
What the hell does that mean?
So he was born here but bred abroad.
Yeah, but doesn't tip, right? So he's Indian.
Yes,
Go on.
he's Indian by origin. So anyway, so he was like, I said, did you do it? He was like, no. And I called my best friends. I was like, did you guys do this? They were like, no. And then my husband was like, you know what? Your contract is about to be over. You've always been like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. Maybe you should give this a go. What's the worst that can happen? And that's been my mantra in life. What's the worst that can happen?
But who sent the application?
I still don't know, Cyrus. Will you believe me?
It was just one, or like lots of people send applications?
It was one application.
So it could be anybody?
It could be
from
anybody.
Your friend circle?
It could be anybody from my friend circle. Anyway, I woke up the next morning and I recorded a little video and I sent it. And I get an email from Big Brother.
What do you have to do? Like just who you are?
I just said, I was in my backyard with like a cup of tea in my hand.
Oh.
And I was like, hi,
and you look into camera
Priya.
and one of those terrible...
I'm like, hi, this is Priya Malik and this is this. It was supposed to be 1 minute. So I did that. And the next day I got an email saying, you have got a super pass, which meant that I did not have to go through the stages of audition and I would straight away meet the executive producers. So I thought, and I'm a huge believer in destiny, so I thought, you know what, let me go meet them. When I went there, there were like thousands of people there for the audition, going through different rounds. There were group rounds, there were like those solo rounds. They had to like play games and they had to do all that. And I showed them that Superpass email printout and they're like, oh yeah, please go through. And I was like, okay.
So there's a caste system in Australia just like here?
Apparently. It's only for Indians. Back in the day, it used to be Indians and dogs not allowed. Now it's like...
No, but Janta Hu Mera Baap Kaun Hai applies there as well.
Totally,
yeah? Take one phone call.
Yeah. So I went through and I had the most brilliant chat ever with Alex, who was executive producer, and we spoke for like 45 minutes and he was like, I really want someone like you on my show. I was like, okay. And then it just rolled on from there. And
but you have seen Big Boss. It's all this like
and
rubbish.
Big Brother. So Big Brother
Big Brother.
Big Brother Australia is actually apparently very different from Big Boss. It is not as dramatic. It is not the voice mixed with fear factor, mixed with all of that the way Big Boss here is. It is actually a social experiment which focuses on group dynamics. So which is what the show was all about.
Sounds pretty shady, Priya.
And I made it to the top 4 and I was like, okay, which was weird.
So you became a household name then, because it's a big show in Australia.
It is.
So everybody realized who you were, and I'm sure you stood out being of Indian ethnicity.
Yes, and my
all that.
students loved it, and
Did you encounter any racism?
A little bit here and there. Like there was this one guy who said, the reason why you're offended by this is because there's a cultural difference. And I was like, I don't think bullying is a part of Aussie culture. So FYI, it's not a cultural difference.
He got voted out.
He made it to the top 6, but he left before me. He was like my biggest enemy on the show. We never got along. He was a misogynist, racist. Can I say that?
Well, it's a bit late. you can say. What the hell? Don't say racist.
No, he totally was. And
was
just
he straight? Was he straight?
Pig. Yes, apparently. I mean,
so maybe he was trying to hit on you and it didn't work out.
No. It wasn't one of those things. It was just someone that...
It was just a joke.
We just had different ideologies.
Let's abuse him anyway.
Yes. Can we please, David Hodis, are you listening to this?
Yeah. Nobody likes you.
Jerk
Nobody
still.
likes you.
I'm
No
sure
Desi
you're
community.
Still a jerk.
You cannot be a chief guest in any of the Desi community functions. You will not be at the Diwali function or the Holi function.
Ever.
I'll tell you. Ever. Yeah.
And I hated how they call it the colour run. It's called Holi.
They call it the colour run?
Yes.
It sounds like an Oprah Winfrey book. What's the colour run?
They call it a colour run in Adelaide. It is so weird.
Are you
I'm
serious?
like, no, it's Holi. Even the Indians are like, are you going for the colour run? I'm like, no, I'm not playing Holi.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's
That's
weird.
superb. The colour run. I think we're also running a little bit here. Shall we take a break? We'll take a quick break and we'll come back. Lots more to talk about with Priya Malik. Lots more.
Yay.
Yeah, colour run.
We're from the Daily Pow, a Bombay-specific food and culture website, and we have a weekly podcast called The Podcast.
That's Pow with an O, not with a V.
Why is it with an O and not with a V when most people spell Pow with a V?
Because it's Pow, not powerful.
And you know some people also spell it with a U.
Like
P-
Pow,
Pow,
like feet.
yeah.
Like Pow Lagu.
Yeah, like Paulagu. So weird. To listen to more of us and what we have to say about the city and its culture and its food, listen to the podcast every week on IBM Podcasts.
Okay, back here after the break, and Priya's just giving me a few interesting insights into being a Indian from here and then becoming an Australian. Sort of what is it you said?
I think something really weird when you are an Indian living abroad, because you're caught in this dichotomy of culture, So there are two kinds of immigrants. There is
the ones who wear bikinis to the beach and the ones who don't.
Well, there is.
I'm talking about the men now.
Right. Well, there's a lot more than that. Once I'm forgetting the names of these two theories. Once who.
Let's call it theory A and theory B.
Okay, let's call it theory A and theory B. That will be a better way to put it. Mm-hmm. There are ones who completely want to eradicate and forget who they are, where they have come from, and completely embrace the country that they have come to.
Sort of feel shame being Indian?
Not shame, but I think there is a lot of denial that happens.
Let's move on. Let's forget that past.
There's a lot of denial that happens because you're in a different country and you want to adopt, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And they take it too seriously, where everything becomes the adopted countries, the way you speak, the way you...
So you go out of your way to fit in.
Yes, you go out of your way to fit it in. And the other one is, now I know, the other one is called enculturation, where you keep your identity, you keep yourself for who you are. At the same time, you adopt whatever is good about that country, which means you don't start hating the country that you're living in, but at the same time, you don't forget the country where you're from. So it's a very...
So you're Indian Australian, as against
Indian Australian.
Indian who want to be Australian.
Exactly, which is where I wanted to be. I wanted to be Indian Australian. I didn't want to be Australian. I could not be Indian anymore because I had left India. I had made that conscious choice.
And bribing in Australia is a crime, so you got to be careful. Yeah.
But it became such a big deal at one point in time. I think I had such a massive identity crisis, and I'm going to be really honest about it. So when I was in India, I was a massive rebel back in Dehradun. Like, I would do everything that my parents would ask me not to. I would be this westernized young girl who only spoke English, spoke received pronunciation. I actually had a book of phonetics, like the phonemes. So I sounded like this even in Dehradun, right? Then I would only wear Western clothing. I would only listen to English music. Everything about me was that, because that was my form of rebellion. No, I will not wear this. No, I will have boyfriends.
Smoke?
No, I smoked. I
Wow!
I did everything,
Superb.
right? In the little gullies of Dehradun, I did all of that. Then I went to Australia. This is me like my mid-20s, facing the same kind of rebellion that I did as a teenager, where I would go to school wearing a sari to teach.
So now you switched.
And kids be like, what's wrong with Miss Malik? Because that was my form of rebellion, because I was like, I got to normalize this. We need to normalize difference. You can't be homogeneous as a society or a country. I think difference and being unique really matters. And I think that's what I started doing. I started being more Indian in Australia than I was Indian in India.
I think it's a lovely story. So when you come to India, you're Australian. When you're in Australia, you're Indian.
So crazy.
It's great.
So crazy.
I love it.
It was so crazy. But you know what happened, Cyrus? After a while, it became normal for people to see me dressed the way I was. Wearing a sari or wearing a kurti over my jeans at school became normal. And I think that's what I was aiming at, to normalize difference. I think that is so important as a society.
Interesting. I think I would try the same tact, except I don't look good in a sari. I've tried it. It doesn't work for me. But Priya's opening her heart here, so we'll find out more secrets in a second. But first, then how do you veer into writing, columnist, actress, and coming to this part of town again?
Right. So I have always enjoyed doing more than one thing at a time. Pun intended.
Oops. Okay, I'm sweating, Priya. Move on with the life story.
No, I've actually always enjoyed doing more than one thing. Like I was never just teaching. I was always doing slam poetry on the side, or I started doing stand-up comedy.
In Australia?
Which I did very well in Australia.
Where would you perform initially?
Adelaide, the Rhino Room, which is like
A
one
bar?
of the... Well, Rhino Room, yes, you could call it. It's a comedy club.
So people come and perform there?
Yes. I've even performed at the Comedy Store in Sydney, which is one of the most well-known... Yes, I've performed there as a comedian as well. So I used to do comedy and poetry on the side anyway while I was a teacher. And it all sprang from angst. Most of the art that I've always done has sprung from some kind of angst or some kind of bitterness. I used to talk about things that used to matter to me.
What are you bitter about?
Oh, I was super bitter about racism. Super duper bitter. And Australia is a racist country. And I've said this in front of Aussies because it is. And so is India to a very large extent.
100%.
You know, we are casteist,
we wear
racist.
racism on our sleeves.
We do.
The poor don't because they don't have sleeves. But that's the way it is.
Or sometimes arms, unfortunately.
Oh, Priya. There's comedy and there's brutality. And it's
It
nice.
is true. It is true. So there was a lot of that happening. And then when I came to India, I realized that the only two things that I cannot do is I cannot dance and I cannot sing. But I can do everything else.
But
I've
can you
been
park?
writing
Can you park a car in Mumbai?
a parallel park.
Can you?
Cyrus, beat that.
Yeah, come on. If you can park, you've got talent. Anybody can tell poems. Come on.
India's got talent. So I could do all of that.
So where were you writing? Let's go one at a time quickly. So writing was where?
Hindustan Times columns. I write a column for
This is now.
Hindustan
You're
Times
in India.
Brunch.
Okay,
yes.
all right.
And I
Which
have
is what, like an agony aunt column?
No, one was called Tan Ki Baat, which
Okay.
was a column based on women's sexuality being a taboo in our country and in our society in general.
So women aren't allowed to have sex in India?
Apparently, they're not allowed to be sexy in India. Or if they're sexy, that's all that they can be, which
Jeez.
is a problem.
I must be in the wrong country.
No, in the larger sense of the
Okay.
society, if you're sexy, you're just that. You can't be anything more than that. So it was talking about the stigma that we have. And the second column focuses on the idea of getting the sexual harassment that happens in every day and how we have normalized that to how now when
Talking
we
about like in
read,
marriage and stuff.
no, how now when we read a news about rape in a newspaper or online, it doesn't jolt us the way it used to because we have become so immune to it because we think,
So
oh
much of it
yeah,
happening.
another rape.
Yeah.
So it was more focused on that. I'm writing a book at the moment with for HarperCollins. And writing a screenplay as well. And so, yeah, writing has always been that thing. I think 10 years from now, I see myself more as a writer than anything else. And then acting happened because I wanted to give that a go. Poetry had always been happening because I've done slam poetry in the past and have done quite well in it. And comedy sprang from the angst, and I was doing quite well as a comedian too. So I thought, why should I put myself in a box? I'm not a gift.
Plus the reality stuff.
The reality stuff. Okay, can I talk about this?
Please.
So, for someone like me who does a lot of alternative art, which means, I do theatre, poetry, storytelling, and all of that, Bigg Boss was probably not the best way to launch myself in India. I was asked to do
This
Bigg
was
Boss.
post Big Brother.
Yes. So I was asked to do Bigg Boss because I had done well on Big Brother. So when Endemol had contacted me, they knew who I was. They knew that I'd done Big Brother. They knew that I was one of the finalists.
They
there.
always want this Indian from abroad kind of person, mostly girls that feature.
And with me, they wanted to break the saturation that was happening in that season. I've always enjoyed Bigg Boss and Big Brother as a show. I'll be very honest about it.
With the volume on?
With the volume
What
on.
are you saying, Priya?
It
It's
is
not
one of
fun.
my guilty pleasures. I've always enjoyed that show because I think it is a great study into the human psyche, or so it used to be. But it is nice, it is crazy to see. We love to hate, as a society, we love to hate. So it's sometimes when you're watching people crumble, it's one of those things where like, oh my God, that can happen. So anyway, so when they called me, I knew it was a big deal. I knew, and I had been planning to come to India anyway. So even if it wasn't for Bigg Boss, I would still be in India. I would still be trying out in all of these spheres that I'm already trying out in. So when I look at it from a professional perspective, it will always be a tag that I will carry. I will always be Priya Malik from Bigg Boss. And unfortunately, the way reality TV works in our countries, we think if someone has done Bigg Boss, that means they're stupid, which was also a stereotype that I was
Or they
trying to
haven't
break.
watched the show before.
Or
and
they
hence
haven't watched it, and
did
hence
it.
they're doing
Yeah.
it, which is so wrong because, such a large part of our society watches that show. It is
It's
the most
huge.
watched reality TV show. So, when I'm on that
It's second
show...
only to the condom commercials, which aren't aired between
6 a.m. and 10 p.m.
for
because
some
we are
reason.
so
But
sanskari.
we'll play them on radio. Yeah.
With all the oohs and the ahs.
That's it, without the visuals.
That's it,
It
without
works.
the visuals,
Yeah.
of course. And without the
Because
awareness.
that's sex in India. It doesn't really happen, but you can hear it.
But you can hear it.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah.
So, when I look at it, that it's a very heavy tag to carry. It's a very big weight on my shoulders because even if I'm doing poetry or if I'm doing comedy, if I'm doing storytelling or I'm writing for somebody, I will always get introduced as Priya Malik from Bigg Boss, which started to bug me a
That's
little
what they
bit.
told
because
me
I was
about
like,
you.
Yeah, because I was like, that's not the only thing I've done. That's one show that
It's
I
that
did.
Naveen producer's fault. The first thing he said, she's Priya Malik from Big
From
Boss.
Bigg Boss.
But now when you get to
And
know
when
you, there's
people
much
think
more.
Bigg Boss, people are like, oh my God, she's going to be like this.
Like 8 standard failed.
Yeah, there is always...
best.
And it's so unfortunate that happens.
It's mostly 9 standard. We're just giving it wrong, tangents. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's okay. So that was one of the things. But at the same time, it definitely gave me a lot of recognition and a lot of popularity and a platform where I was myself. And a lot of people said, oh, you were not that stereotypical Big Boss contestant. And I think the only thing I was trying to tell people is that not all reality TV needs to be stupid.
Priya, very quickly tell us, what was the experience like in India now? Australia also, you had perhaps similar experience, but being with Indians, did you feel, was it a happy experience at all? Or?
I entered as a wild card, which means I entered in the middle of the show, which also means that I was
you didn't have strong roots with any of them?
Yes, and they had already had their groups.
Yeah,
and I was very intimidating for them because of the way they introduced me on the show. So immediately there was that alienation that happened, which happens every time an outsider comes into an insider peripheral.
I think the Australian chap already upset them.
Yes,
like she got to study abroad.
We hate her.
Yeah.
So, and my accent is a massive turn-off for a lot of people.
I like it.
Thank you.
Say loving things to me. Let me see what happens.
Cyrus, you're looking really good today.
Okay, stop right there. I can't handle them. My heart is beating fast.
Oh, I love the pink.
Okay, that's it. I need a doctor.
Anyway, so, and my first impressions are horrible. Like, people meet me and they hate me right away. And I know that about myself. I grow on people gradually. Anyway, so all of that happened. I was very emotional in the show because I had left a job, a high-paying job. I had left my husband. I had left my country, my adopted country. And I had come back and I had everything just falling on that show. I was like, and I had no PR. Okay, let me also tell you, I had landed in Mumbai at 11 o'clock at night. Endemol had come to pick me up. And the next day at 4 p.m., I was inside the Big Boss house. I had no PR. I had no celebrity.
Did you know
manager.
anyone? Did you know anybody in the house?
I knew nobody in the house.
And were they a little hostile? I felt they were a little hostile.
Yes, of course.
Like unnecessarily hostile, as against hostile because the person is new.
Sorry, I think that's natural as well. I think as a society that...
No, I'm saying because you came from Australia, you have this accent, they immediately took a sort of, there's a prejudice. There's a prejudice.
There is. And I don't blame them for it. Maybe had I been in their place, maybe I would have felt the same. So there was a little bit of that. So it was very weird to just try to break into that group. And I'm not great at making friends. I'm not. Even in my natural everyday life, I don't have a lot of friends. I'm quite antisocial.
Do you have a lot of plants?
Yes, I do.
They say that if you have enough plants, you don't need friends.
Oh.
Except the plants die a lot, so you don't get too attached to them. Some friends live forever. It's terrible. Yeah.
I wish animals lived forever.
Oh, I'm an animal person.
Animal
and animals who eat plants, even better.
Even better.
Back to you.
So there was a bit of that. But
did you cry?
A lot.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I skipped my period.
Oh.
I was so stressed.
Out of stress?
Yes.
I skipped mine 4 years now.
I was so stressed throughout the show. Now when I look back at it, I feel like I was so edgy.
Why did you react to them?
Time.
At the end of the day, why did you react? It wouldn't matter.
You do, sir. It's like living inside a pressure cooker.
A lot of people...
And, you only know where the shoe pinches when you wear the shoe, right? So only the wearer knows where the shoe pinches.
But a couple of them were nice to you, at least whatever I remember.
Of course, yes.
So couldn't you find
Risha was nice. Keith, Rochelle, I'm friends with Kishore still. Everything is okay now.
So
but I think...
Didn't you get a little group going yourself?
No, I didn't.
No? Never?
No. I think Risha was the only friend that I had on the show. And him and I always battled between us as well. Because when a friend is wrong, I'm used to telling my friend and others that he is wrong. Just because he's my friend doesn't mean he's always
Hence
right.
we have animals and plants.
Hence
you just can't keep a friend.
Plants. Yes. It is tough for me and I'm going to be honest about it. Yeah.
All right. Let's leave that aside as we end the show. Let's quickly talk about your career right now. So what are you up to? Can we see you in stand-up comedy? Do you do these slam poetry things where people can catch and watch you? And also acting?
Yes. So at the moment, I am doing a bunch of things. I'm doing a lot of writing at the moment. I've got a storytelling show coming up at the Antisocial. I perform with Unerased Poetry. I've got a TEDx Gateway event coming up, which is the biggest TEDx event there is. I'm writing a book for HarperCollins. I'm writing a screenplay for a very well-known director, which hopefully it all works out. I'm still a part of my theatre group, Ideas Entertainment. Whenever we had a very successful run of our show. We performed in New York, LA, then we came back to India. We performed in most of the major cities. So I've still got a bunch of things going on. I've got a digital show on at the moment on Voot, which is called Big Buzz, which is a spin-off talk show based on Big Boss. Every time there is a contestant who gets evicted, he comes on the show and talks to Sahil Khattar and I. And I've got a bunch of things going, and that's what keeps me happy. I need to have that variety in my life.
Is Mumbai home for Priya Malik?
Mumbai is becoming home.
Where's
Cyrus.
your husband?
He's in Australia.
Okay.
So Mumbai is becoming home for me. I don't...
That awkward pause was for no reason. I just didn't know why.
Right. I love being here. I think I have now
So you won't go back
place.
to Australia now?
I'm not sure if I want to.
What if Big Boss offers you 1 million, 10 million Australian dollars?
I don't think it is about
20?
money for me anymore.
It is for me.
Oh,
if
is
they're
it?
listening, I'll do it for 50 Australian dollars and a McDonald's burger. Yeah.
I think it is more about me being happy as a professional artist, and I've realized that I can.
Do you like doing all these different things as
I
against
do.
someone who stays in one path, perhaps just be a comedian or just be a poet or just be a writer?
It sometimes works against me because I would not say I'm becoming a Jill of many trades, but I think it sometimes people are like, okay, so what do you do? And that's always a tough question for me to answer. But I think art as a thing, I don't think it has any boundaries. And I think if you're able to cross those boundaries, you might as well. There's so much intellectual stimulation that I get because every day I wake up, there's something different. And I love it.
I'm only asking you from a metaphorical point of view.
Yes.
Like, I've recently been dabbling with shampoo, conditioner, and this cleansing milk that you put on top afterwards. And I find I'm doing too much with my hair and I'm losing more. So I'm just wondering, maybe I should just stick to shampoo and don't do anything else. So similarly, I just wonder sometimes, stay in one stream and more intensity.
Use your shampoo, use your conditioner.
Variety is the spice of life.
Put some hair
That's what the judge is
serum
going to
in
tell
there.
my wife, Jim Morrison.
But I think it's great. I think if there is anything that I'm really grateful about, it is the fact that I can sustain myself in this expensive city that there is, pay my bills, be happy, be intellectually stimulated.
And find parking.
And find parking. So to end it all, are we almost towards the
We're
end?
almost done.
I think the biggest dilemma that you face as an artist is that there is one plate that feeds your soul and then there is the other plate that feeds your stomach. I think the biggest dilemma that you face is feeding your soul and stomach from the same plate. Thankfully, in the last 2 years of being in Mumbai, I think I'm feeding both my soul and my stomach from the same damn plate. And I think if there is anything that I'm happy about, it is that.
For me, it's all about the sodium content. So I have to be very careful what I eat.
Monosodium glutamate.
Exactly, where I eat and what I eat. But we're joking and pulling your leg. Priya, all the best to you. Is there anywhere we can catch you? You're available on social media?
I'm available
Priya,
on social media at Priya sometimes, not all the time.
I like that. Yeah,
Thank you.
I think that's great.
Thank you.
And that's just a great idea as a concept because whenever you don't want to answer, it clearly says Priya sometimes.
Yeah, I'm like,
Leave
this
me
is
the
me
alone.
being me.
Yeah.
Like, don't you get it?
I think it's cool. All right, so where can last question? Where can we see you perform?
Yes,
or?
you can watch me on Voot. You can stay tuned to my social media because I always update whenever I've got a gig. And you will find me somewhere near you, sometime, somewhere.
All right.
Priya sometimes.
Thank you so much, Priya. We'll end with our Australian accents. I'll try mine. Okay.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So when they say shrimp in the Barbie, is that a sexual thing? No.
Well,
We find
I'll
out.
have to Google it.
Over 47% of online users in India have experienced harassment at some point. So if it's two of us inside this recording studio, chances are pretty high that one of us has faced abuse at some point. How do we tackle this? What do we need to do better? Come, let's learn together. Join me on Akanksha Against Harassment at IVM Podcasts every Thursday. Let's learn how to make online a safe place together.
If you have any questions for Cyrus, write to us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Or you can send an email to whatcyrussays@gmail.com.
All right, and the AMAs just cracked a really bad joke about how you need only one. Let's move on. Question number one. Amit and Naveen are with us.
This is the question from Abhinav. After the recent Ashes test, Steve Smith has the second highest test batting average below Sir Don Bradman. Do you think he's better than
my
Ricky
favorite batsman?
Dan Gilchrist?
This is a difficult question. My favorite batsman of this generation is Stephen Smith, no doubt.
Okay.
The fact that he was a leg break bowler who reinvented himself and became now arguably the best batsman. I think best test batsman in the world. Virat Kohli right there, but I would say Steve Smith best test batsman. The average is very close to Bradman. It's not technically correct because if you look at Barry Richards, who played only 4 tests, his average is higher. But he's whatever. You could take a template of so many test matches and say yes. I think he's going to break a lot of records, and I think he's one of the greats as far as I'm concerned. And I think he's wiped out England in 3 test matches with his batting.
Okay.
I can see from your faces that you're bored, irritated, and upset.
No, I'm like, how do you store all the information in your brain and know all this?
Just as much as you
head?
like toilet seats and can tell me about porcelain versus jade, I like cricket. And I like Aussie cricket a lot. My father was a big Aussie cricket supporter, so am I. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next. I got nothing to say about this. Whatever you said.
And for you, it's just another Mr. and Mrs. Smith, a film you hated.
If you'd be the richest man on planet Earth, what one thing would you do that would astonish everyone? This is from Dutt Pandit, our old friend.
Yeah, I would make scratching compulsory. I feel that too many people are, there's a shame. Like in the old days, your shame was, you're a pedophile or whatever the hell you are.
How can you, being the
people would have these shames.
I mean, like, dude,
these crimes.
Let me read the question out
go
again.
ahead.
If you were be the richest man on planet Earth, what one thing would you do that would astonish everyone? How can you make scratching compulsory as the richest man on Earth?
Yeah.
I would free
Unless you buy all the powder from the world, and throw on everybody.
I think of the Prophet
scratch.
Moses. And I want to free my people here. I want to free my people. And I feel a lot of people, they hide and scratch. I've seen a lot of executives who turn around, or in the gym, I've seen people try to find a corner. Why do you have to do that? Scratch freely.
Yeah.
Scratch openly. Scratch is one people.
And
I would like in the background, Let's Get Together and Feel Alright, Bob Marley song.
Okay.
One love. While you scratch.
One scratch.
Let's get together and feel alright. Come on, boys.
And feel ourselves.
And scratch
No,
it
don't
out.
take it away. See, then you made it offensive.
No, you're talking about scratching your
Yeah, but
genitals.
I wouldn't say feel ourselves and all. You made it sexual.
That's how you make a
You're
song
a bad
better
man.
by using
You're
the
a bad,
situation.
bad man, to quote Seinfeld. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So, but I just feel like, more than scratching yourself, a bigger thing that people like to do in secrecy is clean their nose. Pick on their nose.
You mean dig?
Dig, whatever.
Put the finger up the nose.
Yes, dial a phone number.
Yeah, I think people should put it up other people's noses as well, because we're all one people
Yeah,
again.
that's
Same
a-
song in the background? One love, let's get together and feel alright.
Pick a nose.
Amit is not singing.
Yeah, because I don't know how to sing.
If I was the richest man, I would make being poor illegal.
Ah, so sweet. You sound like Kunal. Once, and this is a true story, ladies and gentlemen, my good friend Kunal Vijayakar, we won't talk about poor and rich. We were at Cuff Parade, and they had dug up, for those of you who know your South Bombay, they had dug up, just outside Badwar Park, they dug up the pavement.
Right.
So all the slum dwellers who lived there, they're mostly fisher folk and that type, but they're all hardworking people, let me tell you, and they all came and slept on the main road. Okay, this was just for 3-4 days. So your 2 or 3 lanes became one lane, basically, in the night. And of course, that inconvenienced traffic and inconvenienced Lord Vijayakar, who's now spending 5 minutes, trying to get his way through about 25-30 yard patch there in Badwar Park. And as he's driving, he goes, "Tell me something, Cyrus. If I ran over these people, wouldn't I make their lives better?" Not to be funny, but actually as an act for him of humanity and kindness and compassion.
I think the way he would make their lives better is by them suing him and making some money out of him. That might be the way that he makes their lives better.
These are fisher folk, the toughest guys in India. After he runs over one, what they do to us will be so painful, Amit and Naveen. I cannot discuss it on this
You'll
tabloid.
be fish bait.
Yes, fish bait. The biggest part would be those 2 dangles, let me tell you.
All right, speaking of Kunal, apparently men think about sex every 7 seconds. How often do you think about Kunal Vijayakar? What would you do without him? Will you ever choose Kunal over
it's
You
him?
very
could not
well-
go one AMA without a mention of Kunal. So
It's
clearly it's
very-
in 7 minutes.
It's very seconds. It's very well put. I think of him after sex because he has to drop people home. Hello, Kunal, do you have a car?
Is he on the side holding a packet of smokes?
Something like that. Yeah. It's amazing because we spend a lot of time together, but I think I'm the one who's have women on my mind much more than he does.
Yeah.
And I think it worked very well. Like Simon and Garfunkel, he does a high harmony, and I do the low harmony, which is the more basic one. So I think his testosterone levels have dipped towards food.
But
while mine
question-
has just got worse.
There's an add-on question to that.
Yeah.
Is that have you ever been emotional around each other? Like when you needed him and
I have.
cry on his
I've asked
shoulder?
him. I remember I've cried once, asking him to leave because he's just been around too much.
See,
So these kind of things do happen.
great friends also have great
Limits.
backstories. This
Limits.
is what I'm saying.
The problem is, again, remember, I don't live around him. He comes to my house and lives in my life. So don't blame me. You talk to him. I don't know what he does. Okay, it's just he's always around me.
Oh my God.
And my people and my places and my studios and my podcasts and everything is me.
Hey, by the way, I
So
saw
it's his fault.
I'm good friends with him on Facebook, and he uses Facebook for real, unlike you.
Yeah.
And he posted something about your kids getting
Then having the Navjot.
Navjot, yeah.
So we have 2 more Parsis, now 11. We can play cricket again. Parsi Gymkhana, up for sale. All right.
And I was wondering why you were dodging my calls the whole week. That's why.
No, I
Because
wasn't
you were
dodging
busy.
calls.
You're doing the event, right?
Oh, what did I do? He did everything.
Oh,
I just have to pay bills.
Still, you poor guy, man. I feel
Put him
bad for
down.
Yeah.
I don't put him down. He just spends too much time around us. We're looking for people to take him. Nobody takes him. And in fact, I'm putting an offer right here on the podcast. If anybody wants Kunal Vijayakar for a day, the rates are very low. Please take him. Yeah. He coughs a lot, but you can't hear your conversation sometimes.
Okay.
We have time for one more? I think
Yeah,
that's
let's
enough.
do one more question.
Okay, one more.
If India had a electoral system like the USA, where we would have to choose our president, whom would you choose?
Oh, very good idea.
Yeah.
But then
Interesting
again, they have to stand. It's not like they're out of 1.2 billion people, I can choose anyone. Because I choose my dad immediately.
Okay.
Why would you not? Everybody choose their dad. My dad is president. And not just of the building, young man. Yeah. Good question. Come on.
Interesting
Naveen,
question,
who would
right?
you choose?
Kanye
West for India.
For India president.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, he doesn't understand the constitution.
No, I don't think he does.
Yeah, what about born in the US?
No, I think Shashi Tharoor would be someone I would like put my bet on if it came to that. Because he's not only like the smartest guy who's around.
He's also got nice hair.
Yeah, he's got nice hair, and he
also
also tackles the issues that are actually.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you have to put him on an international podium, and we've had a few who you've not been proud of.
Yeah,
but you want other people to look and say, "Oh, nice." And so
he trims his hair basically.
Fair enough. Your breeding and grooming is very important.
Yeah,
the look is important. I get it. I agree. Amit?
I don't know. I mean, like, I would probably pick somebody who's done something really interesting, who's built
like
something.
Built toilets for women.
Well, I mean, like
collars for dogs.
I would think something on a slightly larger scale, like I mean, like maybe someone like Sunil Mittal of Airtel or someone like that.
I would make Sanjay Leela Bhansali. I want him to have power sometime. I want him to then deal with all these people.
That'll be good because we'll have at least great infrastructure around.
Actually,
can you imagine the entire Karni Sena is now there's 4,000 soldiers surrounding them, and Sanjay Leela Bhansali has now got like a background. There's music happening and all that. But he slaughters them. It's like.
But I think if he's the president, we'll have great art direction in every part of the world.
It's a good point. Aesthetically, we've always been a bit challenged, let's face it. So, Sanjay Leela Bhansali for president, we all agree?
Yeah,
Sanjay Leela Bhansali for president!
Yes. And Padmavati for national awards.
Why did you bring that up?
That
may be a crap film.
That way at least it'll release.
Me and Amit may still join the Karni Sena. We haven't decided. Let us watch. Interval will make a decision. Alright, folks, that's all we have time for. AMA, in and out. Okay, catch us on any of the podcasting apps, please. We beg you, we need you. If you have any questions, write to us online, and you can mail us as well. We will answer. We have a doctor in the house called me.
And that's what Cyrus says.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Sorry to say, but there's been a slight delay due to the apocalypse having suddenly begun. As you can see, there's death, destruction, and chaos taking place all around us. But don't you worry, food and drinks will be served shortly, and I would recommend checking out IVM Podcasts to get some of your favorite Indian podcasts. We'll keep you going till this whole thing blows over. Thank you.